Bless the Lord, O my soul, blessed art thou, Lord.
So then when for the third that have genuine demonic oppression, they may also have mental illness, right? And so we've got to distinguish those. We've got to find the wounds within folks. But the devil typically only comes out, only really reveals himself if he is threatened.
I'm sure a lot of you have listened to exorcists talked about this. Is it mental or demonic possession in their field of work?
Some of the creepiest places I've ever been are psych wards in hospitals. They're crawling with demons because they hide under the disease.
And recently, someone who has been a huge supporter of this channel since the start wrote this in the comments about the paranormal things he encountered while on duty. And I've also shared this video of this man previously, and this time I just want to know what you think of his experience here.
She is like smiling at me in the corner and laughing at herself and talking to herself, and she's like just, you know, doing those like death stares and like kind of twisting her head. I don't know why you have to twist your head to have a conversation. So I'm talking to the doctor and I'm like, I mean, this is different. Like, we've done a lot of mental health calls, but this one's different. And I was like, what meds can you give her to fix her? And he's like, the only thing she needs is God. And I was like, true that.
I'll share the rest of the clip later in this video. And one can often wonder how tricky the process that's involved for the exorcists out there to determine whether a case they're dealing with is either mental health issue or demon related.
First stage is what we call the discovery phase. I go into great detail on the priest side. I don't have it in the lay people side, but I have it in great detail. So is the discovery phase. And usually you're starting to think, maybe this person's problem is spiritual. Sometimes there will be a preternatural manifestation, which someone will see, and we're just like, okay, wait a minute, there's something here that we didn't see before. But people start to notice patterns of behavior that don't seem to really line out. They seem almost nefarious or evil, and so they're like wondering, or the person themselves will say there's something wrong with me. They may not necessarily want to know what it is, so they'll go to a priest for help, etc. So, and then usually in that discovery phase, you'll say a series of prayers that'll kind of drive the demon to the surface, and at a certain point he'll actually show himself. The second phase is what we call the obfuscation phase. That is where the demons are trying to confuse the person and the exorcist. Well, maybe she just needs more psychological help. Maybe she just needs another pill. Maybe she just needs to go see this other doctor. Maybe your problems are just psychological. Maybe if you just got this, things would be fine. They're obfuscating stuff, and they're trying to hide. It's basically they're trying to hide because they don't want to be fully revealed.
There's a link to that podcast in the description box below if you want to check it out in full. Anyway, now, before we carry on any further, I also want to know what you think of this. Watch this.
Who is he talking to? Dispatch to 329.
329, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Who are you talking to?
I'm talking to a elderly lady. I saw her walking by the store, and she said she's looking for Mr. Griffin. Her name is Miss Abigail.
Did you say Miss Abigail?
Yes, ma'am. She says she wants to see Mr. Griffin, and I told her that the canvas is closed, that she should come tomorrow morning, and she might see Mr. Griffin.
Are you sure you're saying Miss Abigail? Like, she's been passed on for 2 years now.
Come again with that, please?
Miss Abigail she died 2 years ago.
You mean you can't see the person I'm talking to?
No, there's nobody in front of you at all.
I hope that isn't too scary for some of you, because a few have commented that I shouldn't be sharing a lot of scary footage like that in my videos, but sometimes examples are really helpful for the others. So what do you think of that? Anyway, back to the story I wanted to share with you earlier. Listen to this, and I really want to know what you think of it. And I'll share clips of priests after this one. Listen to this.
It was several years ago. I was the only deputy working. Dispatch sent me out to a farmhouse in a rural part of our county because the grandmother wanted a welfare check done on her granddaughter. Now, the granddaughter lived in that grandmother's residence, but in the basement. Grandma said that her granddaughter had not slept or ate in days and was hallucinating and destroying the basement. Why she waited so long, I don't know. Not for me to judge. Now, I knew the granddaughter because I had dealt with her on previous mental health issues and from previous drug arrests. So I can't say I was probably her favorite deputy, but you get what you get. So I show up, Grandma invites me in. She escorts me to the basement door. I open the door. I make a few announcements. The granddaughter doesn't say anything. I ask the granddaughter to acknowledge me. She doesn't say anything. I flick the switch and the lights won't turn on. So my spidey senses are already kind of tingling. So as I go down to the basement, I got my flashlight out. I'm looking around. I'm trying to be cautious. It looks like an ordinary basement. It's concrete cylinder block. It's unfinished. There's just kind of some stuff everywhere. But in the very far corner of the basement, I see a mattress on the floor, and she's on the mattress. And as I get off the basement steps, I see there's broken glass everywhere. I mean, shattered mirrors, the glass from picture frames shattered. I think fine china was shattered. I remember a mug of Santa smashed on the floor. And as I start walking towards the mattress, I see the little string hanging. I go to pull it to turn on the light switch, and that doesn't work. As I look, she had shoved a screwdriver or socket wrench or whatever it was into that light switch thingy, and it not only shattered the light bulb, but it started a small fire. You could see where it burned, and then it must have self-extinguished. So as I walk over to her, she's not really wanting to talk to me. I can see that there's blood all over the mattress. I confirmed she had cut her feet walking on the glass, and as I'm shining the light on her, she starts freaking out. She's saying the light's burning her. So that was a little off-putting. But then when I said, why do you have all this broken glass everywhere? She said it's to keep it out. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. So I sat there and tried to barter with her, being reasonable to come with me to the hospital to get evaluated, and she doesn't want to go. And I felt really uncomfortable because I couldn't really see her hand. She's under some blankets. I finally got to see that she was holding a notebook and there was something else in her hand. And the thing in her hand was small and shiny. I thought it was a razor. So she won't open her hand, and I'm like prying open her hand, and it was a cross. And when I took the cross, she starts all wigging out, going all gone. My precious, nice to So I give her the cross back because it's just a cross. And I was like, why do you need the cross? And she's like, it's to protect me. And I'm like, so, she ends up giving me the notebook, and she had just wrote gibberish all over this entire notebook. I don't know what it was. It probably was nonsense, but I didn't care or want to know on looking it up or doing any of my own research. She did it in like lipstick and like the black eyeliner stuff, whatever that black ink stuff is. That's what she was writing it all on. And I'm like, look, you gots to go. You can't stay here. She finally agreed to go with me. So as I coerced her out of there, the ambulance takes her to the hospital to get evaluated, and she's doing the same stuff there. She is like smiling at me in the corner and laughing at herself and talking to herself, and she's like just, doing those like death stares and like kind of twisting her head. I don't know why you have to twist your head to have a conversation. So I'm talking to the doctor, and I'm like, this is different. We've done a lot of mental health calls, but this one's different. And I was like, what meds can you give her to fix her? And he's like, the only thing she needs is God. And I was like, true that. So my thought process was that then, I've dealt with a lot of mental health. At what point is it more of something sinister as opposed to something more mental health? So anyways, they shipped her off somewhere. She assumingly got the help she needed. She came back, and I hadn't seen her, dealt with her since. I think she moved out of the county shortly after. Curious where she's at. Hope she's doing well. But that was a pretty wild night.
Now try and listen to this one, a clip of Father Glenn Sudano, when he talked about spotting the difference between demonic possession versus mental illness.
There is an enemy. When you see the personality change, so and matter of fact, sometimes I would have people sit with me, like the other friars, so to teach them. Let's say it's you, and I would say, Mario, how are you doing? Fine. How's everything? How's the Ray of Hope going? And you're answering questions just like a regular person, right? Mm-hmm. And then after maybe 10 minutes, and I would do this because I want the people to see that I'm dealing with a psychologically healthy person, right? And then I'll say, okay, well, Mario, let's say a little prayer together. And I put my stole on, and then we start saying prayers. And all of a sudden, you start, your face gets contorted, and you start, spitting or whatever you're doing. That's not mental illness. When you're mentally ill, you're mentally ill all the time.
And when Father Vincent Lamper was still an exorcist, he also talked quite a lot about this subject. So I think just because we're already on the subject, it's a good idea to revisit this one again.
In the United States, an exorcist is trained to be a skeptic, meaning I should be the last person to believe that somebody is truly possessed. The church even says that I need to have moral certitude, and that means beyond a doubt, I believe the person in front of me is truly possessed. So I rely on experts. Step one of the protocol would be for the person to have a psychiatric evaluation. Sometimes people will say, if I have to have that evaluation, it means you don't believe me. But I let them know that if it is demonic, they need to be in a good place mentally before going through the ritual of exorcism. So talking to a mental health professional is important. Step two of the protocol is to have a medical examination by a doctor. So the church wants to ask these experts, do you think that there is a mental reason why the person is acting the way they are? Is there a physical reason that they're acting the way that they are? And then based on the opinions of these experts, I would meet with the person and do an intake questionnaire. Because if somebody is dealing with the demonic, I would want to know, how did they open the door to the demonic into their life? So I would go through a series of questions, asking them about things like their involvement in the occult, like magic and going to see, like shamans and mediums and psychics and these type of people. So I would want to know, what did the person do to open a doorway to evil into their life? Because then using the prayers of the church, I will know what doorway I need to help this person close. And the next step of the protocol is probably the most important, because it's not enough just to cast the evil out. God has to be invited in. It's based on Luke's gospel in chapter 11, where it says that once the demon is cast out, it goes and wanders through the arid wasteland, and then coming back and finding the house swept clean, meaning it's gone, but God has not been invited in. Then it goes and finds 7 other demons worse than itself, and they come and take up residence in the person. So again, it's the most important thing in an exorcism is not casting the devil out. It's actually leading the person to a deeper relationship and commitment with God, because that commitment is what will help protect and safeguard the person in the future from any other possible demonic attacks.
For the last clip of priest that I want to share with you in this video will be this clip of Father Reehil again, which I shared a bit of it earlier at the start of this video.
Some of the creepiest places I've ever been are psych wards in hospitals. They're crawling with demons because they hide under the disease. But we have 3 methods that we look to. One is superhuman strength. So if a 120-pound woman picks up a 300-pound man and throws him across the room 10 feet, that's certainly not her power. Second is a supernatural awareness of events or information they would not have access to normally. So I had a guy who was possessed, and he didn't have a cell phone. He was just he lost his job, he lost his house, he lost his girlfriend, he lost everything. And I would just tell him, I'll be by, sometime in the middle of the week, because he didn't go anywhere. He was always home. And when I would show up, he would be waiting outside by the curb. And I would say, how did you know I was coming? And he would say, oh, they get so agitated when you're about 2 blocks away, and I know that you're close, and I just come out to greet you. Stuff like that, is the person can't, a mental illness can't do that. And the third is knowledge of ancient or foreign languages. So I was just listening to a case where there was a Mexican woman who had really no education, and there were 4 priests in front of her of differing countries' origin, like an Italian, a German, a Polish guy, and maybe an Englishman. And she was cursing at each one of them in their native language. And, her family said, she has like a 3rd grade education. There's no way she would know all these languages. So when you see something like that, then this is not a mental illness. And also, the phenomenon, I had a guy levitate off the couch. No mental disease can make a person levitate and break the laws of gravity. So when you see things like that, you tend to kind of size up the victim pretty quickly. The other thing that's interesting is people with mental illness tend to see the devil in their whereabouts, but not within them. And that's very unusual for a person who is possessed. Possessed people, the demon is inside them. They're not looking at the demon across the room. So when somebody says they can see the devil and he's like staring at them, that's usually not a possessed person. When they're having the demon issue, the demon is inside them. So it's another way we kind of can deduce what's kind of going on. And then in the United States, we do a psychological evaluation with a psychologist, which is an all-day exam before a formal rite of exorcism is done.
Before we get to the end of this video, I just want to know what you think of this ER doctor story. Listen to this.
Several years ago when I was in residency, I was rotating through the ICU, and we got a gentleman who was admitted to the ICU in critical condition. Now, he's not a good man. He had done some heinous things and was on the run from police when he crashed his vehicle at a high rate of speed. He was admitted to the ICU with several critical injuries, and he was intubated on a ventilator and completely unresponsive. I would go in to see him every single day and do my exam and my assessment, try to get a response from him. Really wasn't getting anywhere. The attending would come in after me and do his own exam and assessment of him as well. Although his lab seemed to be improving, his imaging studies were improving, he really wasn't getting any better or waking up. After about a week, I went in and did my exam. There wasn't much response. The attending came in after me, and the attending listened to my presentation of the patient, and then he did something he hadn't done prior to this. I remember he tapped the patient on the knee, and he said, "Mr. Garcia, it's your choice. You can stay like this forever, or you can wake up." The next day when I went in to see him, he was actually starting to wake up, but he really wasn't talking. Over the course of the next couple of days, we were able to take out the breathing tube. He still wasn't really talking to us, although he is completely conscious and aware and following commands. On about the third day after we took out the breathing tube, I went in and did my assessment and tried to talk to him. He really wasn't talking to me. And then when I turned to leave his bedside and walk out of the room, he grabbed my arm, kind of startled me. I turned around and I said, "Mr. Garcia, are you okay?" And he said, "Doc, how long have I been here?" I said, "You've been here about a week and a half." Over the course of the next couple of days, he started to tell me his story. He said, "Doctor, I remember everything. I remember the crash. And when I crashed, suddenly there was nothing, complete silence, and there was total darkness. It was as if I was floating in midair and not going in any direction." He said I would cry out for help, but nothing would happen. And then one day, it completely changed. He said he started to feel the most intense pain he's ever felt throughout his entire body. And it was nonstop and relentless. He said the silence turned into screams, shouts, and torment. He said the pain was completely unbearable, and he would yell and scream constantly for help. He would say, "Please help me, please save me." He was completely shocked that it had only been a week because to him it felt like it had been a year. And he said finally, after screaming for help over and over and over, something different happened. He said one day, he said, "Please help me." And he heard a voice, and the voice said, "You can stay like this forever, or you can wake up." He said, "I want to live. I want to live. Please help me. Wake up, wake up." And suddenly, just like that, all the pain was gone. The screams were gone. The yells were gone. And he was back into that darkness. And the darkness started to fade away. And he could see and he could open his eyes. He said he didn't feel like the same person that was in that accident. And he didn't know what it meant, but he knew something changed within him. Now, you can say you don't believe in an afterlife, or you can say he was making all of this stuff up just to get sympathy from a future jury. But this was his story as was told to me.
Anyway, before I released this video, I had a Zoom session with Father Ian Nuzzi, and I'll share the interview on the other channel, Everything Catholic. But for this one, let me share this clip of him with you, something I've shared in the past.
This is how chastisements are averted on earth. Just as Hannibal said, God receives so many offenses from souls that he feels driven to chastise them, and it is here that he gives us the occasion to practice patience. Why? So that in our practicing patience, we avert these chastisements. If God did not have victim souls on earth, chastisements would be hitting the earth as we speak like never before. The only thing keeping the world from being plundered, knocked off its axis, and fire igniting the atmosphere right now as I speak, is victim souls. That's it. Yes, we have the sacraments. Yes, we have the grace of God, yes, but this is not enough with the sin in the world today to offset God's chastisement. Look at the Black Plague. The church had the sacraments back then. It didn't stop the Black Plague, did it? 50% of the European population died from it. 50%. That's huge. And it would have continued if people did not get on their knees from the hierarchs to the lay and beg God forgiveness. And it was not until St. Michael appeared, sheathing his sword from its scabbard above Castel Gandolfo at the Vatican, that the Black Plague stopped, only in response to the people's prayers. And this is the remedy today. The only thing keeping the world alive, in my opinion, when I say alive, I mean from being chastised. And by the way, the earth today cannot be chastised enough. It cannot. I cannot conceive in my small mind a chastisement that we deserve. Because the worst chastisement I can conceive is not even enough for what we deserve. My mind doesn't conceive that much. But when I start to read the writings of approved prophetic revelations of what's going to happen, I start to understand a little bit of what we deserve and what will happen. And that includes fire falling from the sky and coming out of the bowels of the earth being knocked off its axis with us on it, that nations will be inundated in their entirety. This is in the Revelation of Fatima. Many nations will be destroyed, annihilated completely. The revelations of other saints like Blessed Maria Taigi or Catherine Emmerich, whose writings are approved, talk about all coastal areas being completely submerged, volcanoes consuming entire nations, and the list goes on, plagues, pestilence. Yeah, it's pretty much like a nightmare that you never wake up from, right? But thanks be to God, we do wake up from it, because God will not destroy the earth. The earth is infinite. Thomas Aquinas reveals as much in his work entitled The Power of God. The elements of the earth will be infinite. They will endure for all eternity. I don't say they're eternal, because they have a beginning. Therefore, they're infinite. And the elements are the fire, air, earth, and water. These will remain forever. And this is why we see in the book of Revelation the New Jerusalem, the center of the earth, where Christ was conceived, born, suffered, died, resurrected, and sent forth the Holy Spirit. There he will come back in the flesh to reign on this earth, in the new earth. Not that the old earth will be done away with, no. Pope Pius XII stated that the earth will not be destroyed. It will be transformed just like our bodies after death, to conform to the new eternal modality of existence in the new heavens and the new earth. But the earth will remain in its substance, just like our bodies will remain in their substance. So Hannibal speaks of God averting chastisements through those victim souls on earth who take upon themselves the patience of Christ. He states our patience will strip from God's hands those chastisements that other souls force into them. After all, it is within us that he exercises his own divine patience. And this applies to all the virtues. So you see, you can be a victim soul and avert chastisement from the earth by not allowing yourself to be disturbed when people treat you with frigidity, coldness, aggression, injustice. But see that these affronts are not directed toward you, but to Christ in you. And when you exercise his divine patience of him abiding in you, he relents from chastising the earth and those people who cause chastisement to strike the earth.
And so that is all for this time. For all of you who are still here, listening and watching, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. I hope all of you have learned a lot from compilations like this one. And remember, if ever you have any feedback or suggestion, please let us know in the comments below. Anyway, if you like what we do and you'd like to support us, I left a link to our PayPal donation in the description box below and from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for your continuous support, contributions, and prayers. And until the next one, thanks again for watching and may God bless you.